Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to Canine Cannibalism. Today, we are going to be taking a look at Apt Pupil by Stephen King, and I have it in a copy of Different Seasons. It was originally released as part of this book, which is a collection of a series of novellas by Stephen King. You can buy it as a standalone thing. When I link it in the description, I will probably link the standalone version. I didn't watch the movie. I'm not going to be reviewing the movie. Just going to be reviewing the novella, short story, whatever you want to call it. The book, at least in this copy of Different Seasons, is 178 pages broken up into 29 parts, chapters. We're going to go with chapters. I'll give you a quick blurb. A young boy discovers a Nazi commandant living in his suburban town. What happens next will shock you. So, let's get this out of the way first. If you are familiar with my videos, you know what's going to be coming up. We're going to be doing a content sample, a pre-summary review, a summary of the book, a post-summary talk, discussion, and then we'll be out of here for this one. I didn't do a content sample for the last book I reviewed, which was Rage by Stephen King. I ended up doing one for Apt Pupil. I didn't originally intend to do one, but I did end up doing one because of the fact that there was, in fact, content like that to sample. So, if you aren't familiar with my videos, a content sample is essentially just a trigger warning, but more robust. Essentially, it's just a list of all of the awful things that happen in a given book. So without further ado, we're going to jump into our content sample for Apt Pupil. If you were to pick up a copy of Apt Pupil and read it, you would find all of the following. You have your bog standard gore, torture, mutilation, and death. You also have a kind of sexual abuse. It's the scene that I can remember right now. There may have been a different instance, but the scene that there's a lot of allusions to sexual violence throughout the book because it's a book that pulls heavily from stories about a Nazi concentration camp. And then there is a scene that it is a dream scene, so it's not real, but it is the book isn't real itself. So at what point does it just it doesn't affect me at all because I'm like, oh, it's in a dream, but the scene is in an entire book that's fake, and it is a description of a rape. So it's not real in the book, but the book itself isn't real. So at what point do you just put it in a trigger warning anyway? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, there's sexual abuse in the book, including sexual assault and rape. There's also child abuse throughout the book. There's also animal abuse, including physical abuse and animal death. Think serial killer beginnings, running over injured birds with a car, baking neighborhood animals in an oven, that kind of shit. There's also racism and religious discrimination. Now, I don't normally put those things in there for just usages of slurs and stuff like that. It has to be pretty intense in this book because we are dealing with a Nazi and Nazi ideals. Lots of anti-Semitism and racism, that kind of stuff. There's also addiction in the book. Nothing major, just alcohol. And yeah, that's it. That's going to be it for our content sample. So let's jump into our pre-summary review. The characters in this book are all fantastic. That is pretty common with a Stephen King novel. Editor me, flash up the picture of my Stephen King bookshelf again. Thank you. Most of his characters are excellent, and this book is no different. I enjoyed the characters that he created. I especially enjoyed our main character, Todd. It's a trip. Let me just say that. It's a trip. The book is filled with metaphorical things, juxtapositions, parallels, callbacks, and then this is a word that I learned while doing research, adianoetas. Adianoetas, where you say something that can have two distinct meanings. It's filled with a lot of metaphorical language, and it does wonders for the book. It draws a lot of comparisons between the situation that the characters are in and the concentration camp that one of the main characters worked at. I think it's wonderful. I think it was done wonderfully well. Like with Rage, which had a lot to do with insanity, sanity, it had a subtext meaning. It had a deeper analysis of a concept. This book seems to be fascinated with the fascination of the macabre. And we'll talk about it a little more after the summary, but it's not as interesting as the discussion on sanity throughout Rage, but it is still interesting nonetheless. Let's also get this out of the way right quick. If you watched the last video, I mentioned how Rage fucked me up when I read it as a freshman in high school. At that point, I had read most, if not all, of the Stephen King books on the shelf. Pop up the picture again, thank you. And Rage fucked me up. And I never finished Rage. I read up into the last few chapters, and then I stopped. Apt Pupil I finished, but debatably Apt Pupil fucked me up more. Because whereas Charlie comes off as charismatic, or rather Charlie from Rage, probably should give you that context, comes off as charismatic and funny and likable, but isn't really all of those things. He's just batshit insane. Todd in Apt Pupil is charismatic and likable and kind, and then slowly starts to lose his mind as the book progresses. But it's very easy to identify with him, especially as someone who was around his age in the book when I started reading the book. It fucked me up. Again, like I said in the last video, I am very good at putting myself into the shoes of the characters that I am reading about. And doing that with somebody like Todd or Charlie, and the two of them are very similar in their insanity when they finally snap. I don't know whether that's my guess would be that that's just a symptom of the fact that Stephen King wrote both characters to be mentally unwell, high school-ish aged kids. But, well, that sucked. My audio cut out. Good thing I caught it before I recorded the rest of the fucking video. Where was I? When faced with a character like Todd or Charlie, especially being someone around their age, it is very easy to identify with them as somebody who aspired to be like they were before they snapped. Kind and charismatic and social. And for them to then go down a horrifically abhorrent, that's just a tautology, an abhorrent path, it was too much. That's going to be it for our pre-summary review. We are now going to jump into ratings, and hopefully my audio doesn't crash again, because I'm going to crash out if it does. If you are unfamiliar with my rating system, I take certain aspects of a given book or story and rate them on a scale from 0 to 10. With these first numbers, on that scale from 0 to 10, 5 is completely mid, nothing wrong with it, not good, not bad. 0 is terrible, 10 is incredible. For your plot and plot direction, for Apt Pupil, it is a 9 out of 10. I enjoyed the plot. That's partly why I enjoyed the book so much. It was paced very well, I think. It's very, I want to say all of the disturbing stuff is very back-loaded, but the front of it is very much a small chunk of time, and then as we go, the time jumps get bigger. I thought the pacing was great. It allowed us to fully see Todd come into his own. He kind of loses his fucking mind, but I just thought it was done very well. The tone is going to be looking at it again, I'm going to actually lower it to, I wrote down 7, but I'm actually going to lower that to a 6. It's not like bad. Don't get me wrong, it's absolutely not bad. It's a 6. It's just not anything like incredibly groundbreaking. It didn't make me like feel all of the emotions going on in the text. It was just kind of there. It was a little bit better. It was written very well. Some of the emotions that I would assume Stephen King wanted to get across came across, but not like, oh my God, what the fuck is happening? I'm vomiting out of fear and suspense. There is one scene that is actually pretty suspenseful and did get my heart rate going a little bit, but it wasn't like fucking crazy or anything. All right. So we're going to lower that to a 6. Characters and character development, that's going to be a 9. Like with Rage, we spend the entirety of our book, and I guess you could argue that most books spend the entirety of their book developing their characters, but we do spend the entirety of this book simply developing our characters. We follow a character who is growing and changing as a person as he ages, and he talks to another character who tells him stories about his life. Like, it's very much character focused. So development was great. The characters, I love Todd. I love Desander. Horrible people though they are, written beautifully. Grammar and typos, it's going to be a 5. Wasn't anything inspirational, and there were no typos or strange usages of grammar. Your dialogue is going to be a 7. Stephen King, I said this in the last video, is a whiz when it comes to his dialogue. It is incredible, and I don't know how he does it, but it always comes across exactly how I would hope he would want it to come across. There's never a moment where I'm like, a normal human would never actually say that. He manages to keep the diction in line with the tone that he's going for, and in this book specifically, he changes the dialogue of Todd over time as he ages to show his unraveling. It's so good. It's so good. It's not like the most incredible thing in the world. I would say the dialogue in Rage was better, but it's so good. Prose, very similar to Rage. It's a 7 in this book. I enjoyed it. Like in Rage, I'm really sorry that I'm comparing those two books, but in my head they occupy the same fucking like little space. He uses specific capitalizations of words and italics to get across his point. His structure seems very purposeful. It's good. Personal enjoyment is going to be an 8. I really did like it, mostly for the story, mostly for the characters, but I did really, really enjoy this book. These next two ratings are your disturbing factor and your gross out factor on a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is not disturbing at all, and 10 is the most disturbing, the most gross, so whatever. For your disturbing factor, Apt Pupil is a 7. It is rather fucking disturbing, if I'm honest. Even now, having aged and hardened, and if my eyes turn red, run, you know what I'm saying. It's still really fucking disturbing. It is a child who is debatably not very mentally well to begin with, unraveling. There's murder in the book. There is animal abuse in the book, extremely violent and vile animal abuse in the book, although all animal abuse is vile, but you get what I'm saying. It's a lot. It's a lot. And for your gross out factor, it's going to be... Actually, I'm going to change this as well. We're just changing everything tonight. That's actually going to be a 1. I gave it a 0, but now that I'm thinking about all of the descriptions of just dehumanizing concentration camp victims and people living in their own filth, it's kind of gross. It's nothing over the top, but it is gross in certain points. And that's going to be it for your ratings. We are going to jump into a plot summary now. This is your warning to get out if you don't want the major plot points spoiled for you. But if you don't care, you can stick around. As I always say, if you were to go and read this book, even after I gave you a plot summary, you would have a very different experience. Beyond just normal summarization, where you leave out certain bits, take certain bits out, I sometimes purposefully leave things out so as not to spoil every fucking thing that happens. Leave some things up to the imagination for the prospective reader. And then also I rearrange some of the details to make them easier for me to explain. I don't think I did that in this instance, but sometimes I do that. So you will definitely have a different experience if you were to listen to this video and then go read the book. It would not be the same. No summary will ever do a book justice unless you're just reading the fucking book. So let's get into it. Todd, our main character, is a polite, friendly 13-year-old and overall good boy who is a very apt pupil and has a fascination with learning. He also wants to be a private investigator when he grows up. He also has a borderline, and I would actually omit the word borderline. He has an unhealthy obsession with the evils of the Holocaust. He is fascinated by the fact that a people could carry out something so heinous. Again, that's dipping into the whole fascination with the macabre thing. By chance, Todd notices that a local man named Arthur Denker bears a striking resemblance to SS Unterkommandant Kurt Dusander, who ran the Patine concentration camp. Kurt Dusander is not a real person. The Patine concentration camp is not a real thing. This is all fictional. Another thing, I could find no historical source to back up the term Unterkommandant. I am familiar with commandant as a leader of a concentration camp, and then every time I looked up this word with different fucking Google food jargon to try to get a result, I just got recommended the Uber commandants from fucking Wolfenstein. So I don't know if the Unterkommandant was an actual like designation or rank, but he's called the Unterkommandant. I'm probably just going to refer to him as a commandant from now on. So, or a commandant, just because it's fucking easier for me to pronounce. Anyway, Todd begins to shadow Kurt and gains evidence confirming that this man is in fact an escaped SS commandant. Todd then confronts Dusander and blackmails him into telling him stories about the different aspects of the war and the camp that he ran. The battles, the ovens, the mass graves, the experiments, the uniforms. It starts seemingly as if he's trying to punish Dusander while learning, but this quickly changes as they both start to slip. It's I will note the book places heavy emphasis on the sexual experiments that were run. There's mention of women being bred with dogs, or them trying to breed women with dogs, forced homosexuality, that kind of thing. It's very Josef Mengele-esque, which tangent here. You know, Hitler gets a lot of like most evil man to ever exist. Genuinely, aside from like fucking maybe Garavito, the beast, the most prolific serial killer ever, but aside from him, and maybe even worse than him, Josef Mengele, I had a fucking social studies professor who pronounced it like Mongala or some shit. I don't know how it's actually said. I think the most evil motherfucker that has ever lived in this goddamn planet. I know, fucking hot take, big stance. Ooh, Nazi doctor, the angel of death is evil. But the things that guy did, the experiments with pregnancy and twins and children, is some of the most heinous shit I have ever heard of in my goddamn life. I would never wish hell on another human being. There is no mortal crime or series of mortal crimes that I think would justify an eternity of torture. But that motherfucker... I did research on him when I was in like fucking 8th grade. The shit that these people did, these Nazi doctors that were like Josef Mengele, that worked under him, the things that they did, it is worse than anything that I have read or told you about. 100 times worse, 1,000 times worse. It is awful. It is just awful. Anyway, tangent on fucking evil over. Slowly, as the months pass, Todd goes to Dusander's house more and more, telling his parents that he is reading to a nearly blind old Denker. He's not actually blind. He feigns blindness for this story. Todd's grades become poor and he begins to exhibit emotional changes. He loses weight and sleep and begins talking to himself. He forges his report card when it has negative grades, and he has horrific dreams and is often distracted by thoughts of the stories Dusander has told him. Todd brings Dusander a mock SS uniform and forces him to put it on and march as some sort of power play, but he doesn't fully like the look Dusander gets in his eyes when he's wearing the costume. However, he doesn't fully admit this to himself. Meanwhile, Dusander's horrific dreams of being chased by the prisoners of his death camp return. He finds that donning the SS uniform stops the dreams, but it only does this for a little while. Then he begins catching stray cats and cooking them alive in his oven. When the dreams start returning sooner and sooner, he admits to himself that he can always go to the pound and pick up a dog, which he does end up doing eventually. The two, Todd and Dusander, become locked in a mutual blackmail. The boy has his information of Dusander's past to hold over his head, and Dusander has made the boy aware that he has become some weird sort of accomplice, and that he has known about Dusander for so long and not turned him in. Dusander and the boy make a plot to get the school off of Todd's back. Dusander dresses up and pretends to be Todd's grandfather, then goes into a conference with Todd's guidance counselor. This works and is the last piece of blackmail Dusander needs to tie the boy to him, like the boy has tied Dusander to himself. Todd, he has a wet dream where he rapes a young girl at the direction of Dusander. Dusander writes a note detailing the plights of him and the boy and puts it in a safety deposit box. The box will be opened upon his death if the boy should murder him. But truthfully, there is no box and no letter. It's just a lie Dusander has cooked up in order to frighten Todd. Todd considers killing a homeless man, then doesn't. But later he does. With a knife. Brutally. Over the next few years, Todd becomes a very successful and popular high school student. He becomes a very good shot with a rifle in I think it's the school's rifle club. While this is happening, he goes out to seedy parts of town and brutally murders homeless men. He begins to grow more psychologically unraveled, often entertaining thoughts of murdering people who annoy him, as well as entertaining anti-Semitic thoughts, or increasingly anti-Semitic and racist thoughts. He also fantasizes about taking his rifle up to a hideout overlooking a freeway and shooting the people stuck in traffic. Throughout this time, Dusander also begins killing similar homeless men in his kitchen after luring them home. He buries these bodies in his basement. At the end of Todd's senior year, Dusander has a heart attack while burying one of his victims. He calls Todd over. Todd finishes burying and cleaning and gets Dusander to the hospital. While in the hospital, Dusander is recognized by an ex-prisoner of Patin, a Nazi hunter named Weisskopf. I thought about how to pronounce his name a little bit. I think I'm assuming it's German in origin, so Weisskopf. Anyway, a Nazi hunter named Weisskopf arrives from Israel and confronts Dusander, leaving after saying, "Your time is growing short, old man," something along those lines. Dusander, knowing that Weisskopf will return and that he will be captured, steals some pills and overdoses. As he is fading and almost seemingly content with his life, he entertains the thought that he may be stuck with his awful dreams forever. He tries to wake back up, but invisible fingers pull him down into the mattress. Todd is interviewed by the police after the news about Dusander gets out. Todd slips up a couple of times during the interview. Afterward, Todd cleans his rifle outside, realizing that he slipped up. His guidance counselor, who has since realized who Todd's apparent grandfather actually was, approaches Todd. Todd shoots him. Todd then shoulders a bag containing shells, grabs his rifle, and goes to his lookout on the freeway. The last line of the book tells us that it took 5 hours for them to bring him down. So, that is the plot of Apt Pupil. We're going to have a little discussion about some of my thoughts post-summary. For one, I think Todd would have always turned out the way that he did in the end. Maybe not as extreme, but I think there was something wrong with him from the get-go. He, from the beginning, is obsessed, and even Dusander takes notice at how unhealthily obsessed the boy is with what Todd refers to as the gushy details of the camps, things that no normal child would really want to learn about, or at least not to the extent that Todd does. The motherfucker keeps a scrapbook, okay? He keeps a scrapbook of Nazis and war crimes, all right? It's not normal child behavior. The book seems to kind of half-heartedly argue the opposite. At one point, Weisskopf says to a police officer, maybe it isn't possible to stand close to murder piled on murder and not be touched by it. A lot of you who are into this kind of content have heard that fucking take probably 100 times before from people close to you. Dude, when I was living with my parents, they would be like, "Oh, Dylan, you can't be doing this. Oh, you're gonna hurt yourself long term. Oh, Dylan, don't do that. Don't do this." It's the same kind of shit. I don't fully subscribe to that belief. I think because of my beliefs, I really do think Todd would have always kind of turned out fucked up. I don't necessarily know that he would have turned out as fucked up because it does seem that he uses all of the violence he commits as a sort of drug to stave off his obsessions and dreams. But if it wasn't the fucking Nazi stuff, it would have been something else, in my opinion. This is kind of backed up by the fact that even after him and DeSander like fully fall apart, he's still like completely nuts. I don't think the things like he was under stress. All right. He was under a lot of stress. Who are under a lot of stress, normal people don't blackmail a Nazi into telling them all of the sex crimes that were committed at the camp that they ran. But that's beside the point. Normal people don't crack under that much stress and go kill homeless people because they believe that they're lesser human beings. Like, kid was always going to be a little fucked in the head. There's also an interesting question that I would like to posit to you, which is what would Todd have become had things not worked out the way they did if he hadn't been so cavalier about his murders with homeless people, if he hadn't snapped and gone and shot up a freeway for 5 hours? What would have happened? I think, and I believe the book alludes to this, he would have gone on to be someone similar to Hitler. He becomes successful in high school. He does all the sports. He gains popularity in the news, wants to go on to do history stuff. As a 13-year-old, he mentions that politics is just like a tool that adults use to like justify their actions. But as he ages and unravels, he slowly starts using things to justify the things that he does. I think at some point he could have gone on to be a very, very successful politician. Could have said the exact right things. He was living a fake life for his entire high school career. He could have absolutely gotten away with a fucking political career because all of those motherfuckers are not telling you the truth. Also, his father, and this is kind of a trait passed down from father to son, seems to harbor some racism inside of him, either from his father or somewhere else. Every time he refers to someone of a different race, he refers to them by a slur, hog style. He's racist internally and partially externally. And then Todd starts to, specifically with Jewish people, refer to them as slurs. He hates homeless people. He thinks they're a drag on society. He calls them all winos and worthless, that kind of thing. He harbors a lot of hate inside of him for marginalized groups. And I believe the book almost kind of infers that this may be the case. Weisskopf, talking to that same police officer that I mentioned from earlier, he likens our fascination with what the Germans did as opening up the catacombs of our imagination, in which dwell creatures that could crawl out and allow us to build and open places like the camps again. And he says that some of the denizens of these catacombs would look like Todd and would be obsessed with they would look like Todd, like normal suburban boys, fucking bookkeepers, that kind of thing, obsessed with efficiency and kill ratios and nothing else. Very, very scientific and mathematically driven, and just appearing as normal people, he puts them as Americans almost. So that's my question, really, is what would have happened? And I truly believe that if he hadn't been cavalier with some of his murders, if he hadn't, first, he would have had to not go on a rampage. Second, he would have had to not slip up during the first interview. And third, he would have had to not be so cavalier with some of his murders, because if he didn't go on the rampage, the interview they would have caught him. There would have been some repercussions. I don't think he would have gotten necessarily found out about everything, but there would have been consequences. And the Cavalier murders thing, even if these other two didn't happen, eventually he would have been found out. The stones were starting to roll in that direction anyway. So he would have had to have not fucked up a lot of things. But I think if those things had not happened, he would have gone on to be very successful and maybe even ended up as a political figure who wanted to enact similar policies and atrocities to what Hitler committed. I don't know. That's just my thoughts on the matter. It doesn't really fucking matter at all. That's about it. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I read all of my comments. I will give you a heart. If it's something like a question or something that I have further thoughts on, I will respond. I don't respond to every comment. I feel like that's ingenuous or ingenuine. Sorry, fucking brain fart. I feel like it's not a genuine thing to do, is just be like, I could just click on the fucking AI suggestion and be like, oh yeah, that's great, I'm glad you liked the video, but I don't want to fucking do that. I think a heart gets that across. I think if you say something that I have further thoughts on, I will continue that conversation with you, but I don't want to seem like I'm not being genuine, because I try to be genuine with my interactions with my audience, limited though it is, as I always say. I enjoy the interaction. If you didn't like the video, please dislike the video, but tell me why you didn't like the video, maybe so I can improve. What else? My opinions are my opinions and my opinions alone. I would highly recommend you go and read Apt Pupil. I will link you to a copy in the description, probably an Amazon link, and you can go from there. And yeah, that's about it. See ya.